Hello, and thank you for joining me today. So happy to have you here. My name is Darren, and today's story is titled A Potential Encounter with a Mimic or Skinwalker. Now, I haven't discussed mimics on this channel before, but if you'd like me to cover them more extensively, please let me know in the comments. Now then, on to the video. I must preface this with a few things. This encounter is second-hand, but was told to me on multiple occasions by the person that experienced this. I am a natural skeptic and cynic, so I can't say I 100% believe it, but his telling of it was pretty simple yet concise and did not vary between retellings. I've known this guy for many years, and his advice and input on just about everything is well-reasoned and always helpful. So I'll just take his word on it, even if with a grain of salt. Also, keep in mind I'm not a seasoned writer, and past and present tense may get a little jumbled, but I'll keep it clear and accurate as best I can, so let's get down to business. My friend, we'll call him Marv, likes to go solitary camping on occasion to be one with nature and the things that go along with that. He is also an avid gun collector and enthusiast. I don't remember exactly when he said this took place, but it was a few years back, and he decided to go camping on a whim. He packed his gear, a few guns, hunting rifle and .45 sidearms specifically, and headed out into the country onto a vast swatch of property owned by a friend of his. He had full permission and the works. This happened close to the Kisatchie National Forest in south-central Louisiana. I won't be any more specific other than that. Safe to say it's miles and miles of forest and wilderness. He liked to hike in pretty deep and camp at a specific spot he found a few trips prior. These details are kind of sparse, as it's not really the meat and potatoes to this encounter, so he made his way in and set up camp in his usual small clearing for the night. Skipping ahead a few hours, it was now late afternoon when he heard leaves crunching and twigs being stepped on. He assumed it was an animal at first and got up from cooking something on the fire to try to get a look. He gazed in the direction of the noise and saw a man approaching through the trees a good many yards away. He has described his etiquette for dealing with other people in very remote places as always being cautious, as more often than not, people he comes across are armed like him. He tries to stay as friendly as possible, but still keeps his guard up, looking for any ulterior motives, as you never can tell what some folks are up to out in the middle of nowhere. He'll make chit-chat with them, find out generally what they're up to if he can, and occasionally share a meal, etc. He's never really met anyone nefarious as of yet, other than this situation and maybe one other, but that's a whole other ordeal. So one thing that sets off small alarm bells for him is he knows he's the only one with permission to be on this property. And secondly, this guy is not dressed for the location at all. He said the guy was wearing a white t-shirt, short blue jogging shorts, and white socks and sneakers. Mind you, Marv is miles out in the middle of the woods, away from any paths, roadways, houses, or anything, really. Nobody is going to casually stroll into his current location dressed like that unless they are lost or confused, etc. It was early fall, but not quite cool, very normal for Louisiana, so there's a ton of mosquitoes, ticks, and other insects aplenty. You're not going to have most of your skin exposed if you can help it deep in the woods. I know that all too well from personal experience myself. So Marv assumes something might be up and calls out, "Hey there, do you need help or something?" Pretty loud, definitely loud enough to be heard. The guy keeps walking forward, staring directly at him. Marv is starting to get unnerved, and as I said, I know this guy well, and he's cool as a cucumber in a tense situation. Getting more uneasy as the guy's closing the distance, he gets to his feet and loudly declares, "Hey man, can I help you with something or what?" The guy is 15 to 20 feet away from Marv now, standing at the edge of the clearing and the forest. The guy, looking Marv dead in the eye, speaks and clearly says, "Help me." Marv said he was already starting to actually get worried at this point because he said, the way the guy said this was as if something that didn't know exactly how to talk was saying, "Help me," or at least that's what he first thought. It did not sound right. The guy, still unmoving, says, "Help me," again slightly more emphatic, but really just slightly louder. Marv said this is when he picked up on what was truly wrong about this. He said the timbre of the voice was more female and actually sounded like a recording being played back, and that the guy's lip and mouth movements weren't matching up with the phrase. It's like he was just opening his mouth, emitting the phrase and closing it again. Marv asked, "What do you need help with?" not daring to back up or move whatsoever. The guy, still standing motionless as well, still looking directly at him, said, "Help me again," and repeated the phrase another 3 times slowly but not louder in volume. Marv, now totally unsure of what the hell is going on, interrupts the guy by barking, "All right, you need to fucking go now unless you actually need my help. Do you need my help or not?" he continued, loud and firm in tone. The guy didn't miss a beat and started up with the help me's again and made as if to take another step in Marv's direction. Marv told me that he then did the only thing that made sense in the moment and drew his .45 semi-auto pistol and pointed it at the guy, telling him again, "You need to fucking go. I don't care what you want." The guy starts to get more animated and agitated, actually starting to say the phrase louder now, over and over, but not stepping closer or backing away. Marv did what he thought was right, given his current predicament, assuming he was dealing with an unstable or potentially dangerous individual, and discharged a round into the ground in front of the guy. Now, this is where it gets fully batshit crazy, I'm not kidding, as the guy stops uttering the phrase, goes silent, and still staring at Marv, full-on backflips / somersaults like gymnasts do, backwards into the woods, and immediately out of sight. Yes, you read that right. Now I know what you're thinking, because I had and still have the same reaction. That sounds like bullshit for sure, but Marv gave no indication of falsehood and told me this multiple times, each time in dead serious demeanor. Yet Marv said the guy backflipped away effortlessly, as if pulled back by an unseen tensioned coil. He described it as completely humanly unnatural and totally out of place. The guy had just appeared and repeated the same phrase over and over, eventually becoming almost frantic before Marv shot at this ground before him, causing him to flee. Marv said he stood there, focused on the forest where the guy just flipped into, and saw and heard no further movement. It was like the guy had never even been there. He stayed like this as the sun began to set and the normal night noises crept in. As I mentioned before, Marv is a pretty unshakable fellow and actually stayed in the area for the night and next night before returning with no further incident. When he had told me and some other friends about this, of course, we asked many questions. We asked him to elaborate on the guy's speech sounds. He said the more he thought about it after the incident, the more sure he was that it was definitely a female's voice coming from the guy. It was like he had heard someone say this and mimicked it like a parrot or other talking bird would, almost like a lure. He doesn't know what it wanted. It might qualify as an it, didn't give any indication to follow or utter anything else. It reacted immediately to the gunshot, and you know what followed there. He has been back to the property since with no other strange occurrences. The only other minute detail that I can think of is he did remember hearing during the early morning of the first night what sounded like a gunshot off in the distance, and it did sound eerily similar to his .45. He thought he may have heard it again on the hike back out. There are people that hunt in the area, of course, and it could have just been that. He couldn't be sure. Since this incident, and one other he had in a completely different location, he did some online research of the whole Kisatchie area and found many legends, stories, and supposed encounters dealing with skinwalkers and other unnerving bits of Native American folklore in the area, not to mention mimics and other similar supposed creatures. A lot of his encounter lines up with these tales, but there's nothing tangible to prove it, of course. But even as a skeptic, it does make me wonder about strange things in the remote and untouched areas of our world that can't be explained. So I can attempt to answer questions about this, but I'm only going off what I was told, so keep that in mind. I can potentially ask Marv about the ones I can't answer myself, as I should be hanging out with him in a few days. Thank you, and please feel free to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'll be uploading new stories daily, so subscribe to stay tuned. See you soon, and remember, stay vigilant and stay safe.